For my lesson today, I'm going to talk about the scientific method, which this lesson would be for about 3rd or 4th graders. First, there are 6 steps to a scientific method, and they are first their question, hypothesis, materials, procedure, observation, and conclusion. So today we're going to talk about each step and what you do for each step. And a quick way, a little phrase that helps me remind the steps it's called quick hide my piece of chocolate. So the first thing you do in a scientific method is asking a question. You can't figure out the question until you know the question after all. So throughout this lesson, I did a little example to help you understand what I'm talking about. So my example is, does a plant grow higher with or without sunlight? So that's my question. Hypothesis. Next, you come up with an educated guess called a hypothesis. You can come up with an educated guess by observing and gathering information. So from my example, my hypothesis was, if you have a plant outside for 20 days, the plant will grow higher with sunlight than without sunlight. Materials. Materials is a list of supplies and equipment. So for my example, I have to have 2 plants, a dirt, water, sunlight, and a dark room. Procedure. The procedure is somewhat of a step-by-step detailed description of how you conducted your experiment. So my example, in a 20-day period, I would plant the same flowers in a pot. They would receive the same amount of water and the same amount of dirt, which that's called a controlled variable. Everything is the same. One flower would be placed outside in the sunlight, and the other one would be placed in the closet somewhere that's dark. Observations would happen every 2 days. On the last day of observations, I would measure the height of the plant to conduct how much the plant had grown in a period of 20 days. For observations, when observing, you interact with your experiment, such as using your senses to observe. Does it have a smell? Does it make a noise? Does it have color? So you use your 5 senses when doing that. Different ways to collect your data is by either journaling, charting, or graphs. As you observe your experiment, you will need to record the progress of your experiment. You may not change anything during the time of your experiment. So at the bottom, I gave an example of my plant. So I would do it in 20 days on that side, and then on the sunlight and without sunlight, I would record the height of the plant on those days. And then I would determine how much it's grown in 20 days. And conclusion. The conclusion is a summary of the research and the results of the experiment. This is where you answer your research question. You make a statement of whether your data supported your hypothesis or not. So for my example, my hypothesis was correct because the plant with sunlight grew higher than the plant without sunlight, which that goes back to my observations, which it concluded that my plant with sunlight was higher than the one without sunlight. And you can also have a picture which better illustrates how it happened.
Created using Powtoon.